Amagi Metals, where financial freedom is yours.
Hi everyone, this is Megan Duffield from the Amagi Metals YouTube channel. Happy to have Bix Weir today on the line. If you haven't heard of Bix Weir, he is the creator of the Road to Ruta theory, something you can read about at roadtoruta.com. And he's been writing for the past 15 years about the gold and silver markets, exposing gold and silver manipulation. And I actually met Bix about 3 years ago at Silver Summit in Spokane, Washington. It's this really great boutique conference for silver bugs from all over the country and all over the world to get together and hear from some of the top names in the community. So actually, Bix, I wanted to let you know that you handed me an ink pen at a Silver Summit that said, "Write in Ron Paul." You handed me a few of them, and I just wanted to let you know I still have some of them.
Good. I wish that promotion did a lot more good for Ron, but he's still out there chiming in when he needs to.
He is. We actually recently, Stephen McCaskill, the CEO of Amagi Metals, just recently got a chance to sit down and talk with him about gold and Bitcoin for an interview. I'll have to share it with you via email whenever we get done with the interview. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. It's good to be here and looking forward to some interesting questions.
So, as I said in the introduction, one of your biggest focal points tends to be the silver and gold price manipulation. And Freedom Fest just transpired in July, and there was tons of big names there. Everyone's talking about the silver and gold market there. And Doug Casey was a name that really stuck out like a sore thumb at this particular event because he recently was talking about how price suppression allegations are ridiculous. So I wanted to know, I know from your standpoint, you're very staunch on exposing the gold and silver price manipulation. So what is your response to Doug Casey's remarks?
Well, I saw a little bit of that, and I heard people get upset about it from the conspiracy side. Clearly he doesn't understand what sets price if he thinks it's not manipulated. You have a very, very small silver market, maybe a couple 100 million ounces available every year, and yet you have literally hundreds of billions of ounces traded in paper silver, meaning on the LBMA and on the COMEX, and it's all in the data. So I don't really understand what he doesn't understand about gold and silver being manipulated. I mean the physical gold and silver. You can do all you want with paper contracts and change the price any way you want, but I've been exposing this for 10, 15 years with GATA, and there's just so much proof and basically announcements. If you look at Greenspan talking in the 90s about the Federal Reserve stands ready to lease more gold if the price goes up, that is basically a admission that they were going to lease gold. If the price went up, and they leased the gold. So I don't know what Doug doesn't get about price manipulation. I think he likes to, stand out on the side and look like a contrarian, but because everybody's understanding or starting to understand what the gold and silver manipulation is. And, I don't read Doug that much, but everybody's allowed to their own opinion.
Right, and on the topic of price manipulation, tomorrow is a pretty big day. The London Fix closes, the London Silver Fix. Do you think this will be affecting the price of silver immediately in the short term? Do you think this is going to be a longer process to see, the price of silver reach its quote-unquote true value that you think it has?
Well, it's an interesting thing that's going on right now. Basically, the paper market in London, which is paper futures options, and they say it's real physical silver, but we know it's not. It trades over 105 billion ounces every year, according to their own data. And the end of the fix is extremely significant because that term London Fix is used in every single silver derivative contract written out of London, which is a huge amount of derivative contracts. So every contract that matures after tomorrow will kind of be put in limbo. And the ISDA came out and said, well, you can use this new thing called the London Silver Price, but it clearly is not the London Silver Fix. And if you want to use that, you can negotiate with your counterparty of your derivative contract and you can use it, but you don't have to. Well, that just leaves a gaping hole for the losers to say, okay, I don't have to pay up because there's no such thing as a London silver fix after tomorrow. So will it affect the price? Well, there's a few things going on. First of all, there is no price. There's no exchange for physical silver. The LBMA is not a physical market. The COMEX is a futures and options market. There is no real physical market in the world right now, so nobody knows the true price of silver. But do I think it'll affect it? I do think so in certain ways. One, it'll add chaos to the market. I think the new London silver fix that they're making up is going to be no different than the silver fix that they had before. It's just the same people doing the same thing. One interesting thing to look for is the volumes. Are they going to do the 100 billion ounces a year that the LBMA silver fix did? I don't think so. And truthfully, I've heard the banks, most of the bullion banks, aren't even participating yet. They're waiting to see how it goes. So, that's where all the volume came from, banks trading back and forth to each other to set the price. It's going to be hysterical to watch these guys try to explain. The week after, next Friday, they have a conference call, try to explain how this works and how it's transparent, and it can't be. So it'll be interesting. I think the chaos is coming over the next few months. I don't think it'll be an immediate chaos, but I see a lot of the losers raising their hands saying, hey, there's no silver fix, so I don't have to pay up on this contract.
Right. And, I'll be honest, being with Amagi Metals, we're not as knee-deep into ETFs and anything on paper. We deal with the physical metal. And
that's where you should stay, too.
Exactly. And, so we're selling bullion here. We're constantly educating buyers on the benefits and risks of buying physical bullion. But I'd like to hear from you as to what you think are some of the greatest risks of buying gold and silver, as well as the greatest benefits.
Well, there's risks in investing in anything. The risks in physical gold and silver are, one, that you get metal that is pure. Obviously, we've seen and heard rumors of bars that are laced with tungsten and molybdenum for silver, and sometimes they're tough to tell. And if you're getting the pure 999 silver, go to a dealer you trust. That's key. Go to a dealer you trust because they usually have better testing equipment and can tell fakes fairly easily. On the paper side, the biggest risk of an ETF or someone else storing your paper is a financial collapse, obviously, in that there are like 3 or 4 different entities between you and your wealth. And some of those entities are your brokerage house or the warehouse that holds your metal. If we do have a financial collapse, the first thing those guards are going to do at the warehouse is go in, grab the metal, and go home and take care of their family. If you're looking at something even bigger, you got the DTCC. The DTCC is the one that holds all the certificates for all the ETFs and all stocks and all bonds, and it's complete fraud. They're using fractional reserve certificates even these days. And that's the DTCC is the place that got flooded in Hurricane Sandy, and then after it flooded, this is all the paper certificates in the world and derivative contracts. After it got flooded, they set it on fire, and 28 people went to the hospital. So to track down your wealth, if it's held by somebody else or in a ETF or on paper or in a storage account, it's got to be within your own reach, in your own hands, especially what we see coming down the pike very soon, which is kind of another banking collapse, much like 2008, except the people aren't ready to bail out the banks this time, so it'll be interesting what happens.
Right, and it's interesting you brought up the DTCC because I believe recently you were scheduled to be on an episode. Is it the History Channel that was doing
yeah,
an episode on
yeah. It was an episode on the secret underground of America, and it's a show called America's Book of Secrets.
And the fact that they were willing to even cover this topic blew my mind.
Oh, I was amazed. And they brought me down to LA, and I spent half a day in there with the producer and the film guys, and had them blown away. They're running to their bank right after the interview. And then a really interesting thing happened literally 2 days before it was supposed to air. I called the producer, and he had been fired. And then I called another guy down there, and I said, nope, they're going to pull it, and they're not talking about it, and they're not saying why. And I was I was pissed that I spent the time to do it, but it was also kind of an eye-awakening in that the mainstream media will just go so far when they want to talk about conspiracies. They'll never talk about the real conspiracies. They'll talk about the ones, the whole world's already talking about, like, all the hidden, secrets at the Fed and things like that. If it's in the mainstream media, they'll talk about it. If it's not yet, if it hasn't been shown to the world yet, like all the fraudulent certificates at the DTCC, then they're not going to show it. And I should have known before, and I was warned. Cliff High had warned me, hey, look out for those guys. Don't trust them. I said, well, what can it hurt? Well, I lost a day and a half doing it.
Right. Well, and I would like to give a little kudos to the producers who, at least they were trying to give it a shot. I mean, they found it interesting. However, at the end of the day, it's the owner of this major media conglomerate that gets to veto something so powerful as that.
I hope I wasn't the guy who got the producer fired, but who knows these days? Yeah,
who knows? Well, hopefully he's doing okay. So let's go back to what we were talking about, the benefits and risks of silver and gold. What are some of your recommendations for new buyers? I know you're a rabid silver bug, so I'm guessing silver is going to be one of the first things that you say. Physical silver, obviously.
Physical silver, I recommend, and I didn't always recommend this, but I recommend the pre-1965 coins and U.S. Silver Eagles because these two sets of coins are U.S. denominated, U.S. Treasury minted and U.S. denominated debt of the United States, whereas the Federal Reserve notes are debt of the Federal Reserve, which is a completely different entity than the U.S. government. The U.S. government is in charge of printing or coining. It's the U.S. Mint, which is under the U.S. Treasury, in charge of coining the American Eagles. And that all came about in 1987 when they were trying to take down the banks for the first time. And I write a lot about this, how long this game, it's called the Road to Ruta in my analysis because of a Fed comic book back in the early 80s that kind of spelled out the whole plan to how to crash the dollar by printing more than anybody could ever handle and then return to a gold standard. But the U.S. Eagles and the U.S. pre-1965 coinage is what I always recommend. And it's small denominations and very hard to counterfeit. Yes, you're going to pay a premium for the Eagles these days, but you also get a premium when you sell them back usually. So that's my big recommendation. And try to stay small. Don't go for the big 100-ounce silver bars because that it's fine to cash in when silver's $20 an ounce, but at $2,000 an ounce, it's going to be tough to cash that $200,000 bar in. You have to melt it down or something. So I tell everybody stick with 1 ounce or small bars, 10-ounce bars or something like that. But other forms of silver are good as well, and it is a preference. I tend to lean towards. I think in the chaos there'll be people looking for the Eagles and the pre-1965 coinage.
Right. I think that is a great point, especially on the side of the 100-ounce bars and things like that. So thanks for sharing. Something I can't get away from you without asking is your thoughts on Bitcoin. So whenever I was telling our constituency that I was interviewing you today, everyone messaged and said, make sure you ask Bix about his thoughts on cryptocurrencies and what's going to happen with that. But I do want to start by saying a lot of the interviews I've heard from you and speaking with you at conferences, you talk a lot about how when computer banking was introduced, it was the beginning of market manipulation. So maybe you can share with the listeners, especially Bitcoin skeptics, on why they should trust an internet protocol like Bitcoin, but not trust computerized banking?
That's a huge question, and it's funny because a few months back I did a lot of interviews because I was a very, very, very staunch proponent of hard metal. I was a hard asset kind of guy, and when I first heard about Bitcoin, I'm like, no, let's not go there. Anybody and their mother can manipulate it. But the more I got into it, and I do believe it's being manipulated right now, by the way. I think that the Mt. Gox stash was taken by either the Federal Reserve or someone associated with them, and they're trying to kind of manipulate and keep the Bitcoin price in check. But that's a different conversation. But Bitcoin, yes, definitely. I accept Bitcoin on my website for subscriptions. I don't pay anything in Bitcoin because I want to keep it. Now's not the time to be spending your Bitcoin. And when the U.S. everybody talks about, well, they're going to tax Bitcoin, I'd say that's a great idea because it'll keep people holding on to their Bitcoin until this banking system crashes. And when it does crash, we're going to have a few things out there. We're going to have computers. Now, yes, an EMP might take out the computer networks and Bitcoin won't be valuable. Well, that's an extreme scenario, and I always say you have to have both silver and Bitcoin. You can use your silver, but you're really going to need guns and ammo and and food if that happens. But Bitcoin, you need to dig into it. Even the hard asset people, you need to dig into it and understand that it is a form of currency. It's very easy to use. It's transportable across long distances. You can buy something with Bitcoin from China. And it's not as manipulated and manipulatable as even our gold and silver that can be forged or you can have less purity and things like that. With Bitcoin, no one's been able to crack the original code and the protocol, and that's the amazing thing. And it's a limited amount. There's a finite amount that can be ever produced. And that makes a good form of money, and it's transportable, and all those things that make money good. It does take a change of mindset to get over the hard asset versus a virtual asset. But when you do, you'll understand that it doesn't matter if you like Bitcoin or don't like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be here, and it's going to be here to stay because there are people that are involved in it that are making sure of that, and they have a vested interest in it. And they don't care if you participate in their new economy or not. It's still going to go on. So my take is, hey, might as well jump in now when it's still early. It's still very early. Jump in now and participate with all the dot-commers who love Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, when the Fed crashes and the banking system crashes, there'll be silver, gold, and Bitcoin left to use as money. And I think Bitcoin's a great transaction or transition type of monetary system. So that's kind of my 50-cent take on it.
Right, and those people, the people that are listening today, people who, follow some of our educational material and yours, I mean, if you're thousands of steps ahead of the game, if you're already at least learning how to use Bitcoin or, buying physical gold and silver, you're so far ahead. You are, and I just want to make one plug quickly. I know people have a hard time figuring out how to use Bitcoin as far as exchanging your cash for Bitcoin, and it's not that hard. But I've been giving out a promotion hard copy Bitcoin, $20 worth of Bitcoin with every subscription, just to get people in the game so they can take that hard copy Bitcoin and stick it in their safe and say I'm in the Bitcoin game, even if it's only $20 right now. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I do the same thing just with, personal friends and things like that ask me about it. I say, well, open up your smartphone. Let me show you how to build a wallet. I'll send you a little bit to get started with. It's just such a strong educational tool.
Yeah, as it becomes easier and easier to use and adopted by more people, and as the alternatives kind of fade away, meaning the fiat monetary system, Yeah, Bitcoin will be one of the options, and you might as well just get a little bit now and sit on it until one day you will be happy that you have it. As well as I always say, start with silver, get a little bit of gold, not much. I'm not a big gold fanatic because I do think it's suppressed, but I think there's a lot more gold out there than they talk about. The 170,000 tons. From my research, you can times that by 5 to 10 to get the real number. But that's a different story, and that's a lot of the hidden gold behind the banking system and things like that. All that should be coming out within the next year, so people will have a better idea of what's really going on in the banking system.
Well, great. Well, Bix, thank you so much for your time today. This was great. We got a lot of great insight from you, and I know the listeners will probably have some more questions, so maybe we can get together again sometime for another chat.
Hey, it sounds good.
And where can people go to check out more of your writings?
You can go to roadtoruta.com and sign up for free emails, and then check out the if you're more interested, dig into the paid subscriber stuff, and it's a good time. It's an interesting time, especially over the next 2 months when this silver market is really headed towards a perfect storm. We'll see what happens.